Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Luffy gets godly powers from Zeus? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the MELONYANDJOSHUA0921 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Mount Olympus. The 11 Greek gods meet in the throne room waiting for Hermes to return. The first god to speak was Zeus, king of the gods and lord of the skies and storms. He is a tall tan-skinned man with striking solid white eyes, long curly white hair that goes past his broad shoulders and beard to match. He had the body was that of a wrestler, big and very strong, and wearing a long white robe. Zeus had a worried look upon his face. He knows they are all in a bind and need a solution to fix it in fast. Their powers were vanishing and day by day their bodies were fading. He was also worried that Hermes' son wasn't going to make it in time. Hermes was late again and a dark voice came from across the room. Everyone looks over and sees Hades standing in the corner, very predictable. He is tall and strong, looking like his little brother Zeus. But Hades, being the god of the underworld and death itself, had the opposite of his baby brother, as Hades had solid black eyes showing under his black helm of darkness. He has long straight black hair coming out from under his helmet and slightly past his shoulders. Wearing a long black robe and what looks like black fog like mist coming out from under his robe. "How is the fastest among us always late?" says Athena with an annoyed look on her face. She is the goddess of battle strategy and knowledge, and perched on her shoulder is her trusty wise owl. She is a tall, slightly built, beautiful woman dressed like a warrior, carrying a decorative shield and a sword on her back, wearing a light purple robe and warrior-style boots like sandals. It's not logical for him to be late like this all the time. Zeus sighs, knowing he has to tell everyone why he called this meeting, and it figures that his son would be last. All of a sudden Hermes arrives in a blur of blue. He's shorter than most of the gods with slightly tanned skin and slight muscle definition, even though he's like the rest of the gods and has super strength. He also is wearing a metal helmet on his head with a round dome in the middle and flat brim all the way around and 2 wings on the side, and carrying his medical staff. It has a small set of wings on the top and 2 snakes coil around the staff from top to around the middle. He's wearing a light blue robe and his sandals have wings to help run at super speeds and fly. "I'm here to miss," wearing a big smile. Ares, frustrated, stares at his little brother. Ares is the god of war, slightly shorter than his dad Zeus, but has more muscle mass than his dad and 2 uncles. But can't really tell because he's decked out in armor and carrying multiple weapons. A sword on his hip and a spear and shield on his back. But like the others, over all his armor he's wearing a red robe. He yells at Hermes, "You're late again, little brother. How come you're the fastest, but you're always late? It makes no sense to me," as he heats up and you can see flames start to rise off his fists. Poseidon put his hand on his nephew, cooling him down. Poseidon is big and tall like his brothers Zeus and Hades, but has a blue like ocean waves hair. Poseidon is the god of the ocean and controls everything in it. He also carries with him a big golden 3-pronged trident, which helps him better control his powers. And like all the other gods, he's wearing a blue robe. "Calm down, you getting mad won't solve anything now, will it?" says Poseidon. "No, I guess it won't," say Ares is still mad, but calms down. "Yeah, calm down, big brother," as Dionysus leans on Ares. Dionysus is the wine god and unlike the other gods he's half mortal. But he loves to party and have a good time all the time, even if it gets him in trouble. He makes his own wine and makes a lot of it, sometimes too much, and causes a grape shortage. But he is still a god and he is always seen having fun or with a wine glass in his hands. And like the rest of the gods, he wears a dark red robe to match his favorite wine. Ares shrugs him off. "We are having a crisis and as usual you want to drink and party like there's not a care in the world." Apollo beams up and walks over to Ares and Dionysus and says, "Well, if we are going to have a party, I'll bring the music." Apollo stood at average height with lean, strong, muscular build with a very tan skin. He was the sun and music god. He always carried his flute around his neck and little harp on his hip. With a big smile on his face, he wore a yellow robe as bright as the sun. Ares just glares daggers at Apollo and says, "You can go tell someone who cares." Apollo just looks with a sad face and then he turns and looks at Artemis, his twin sister. Artemis is goddess of the hunt, tall for a woman, beautiful like the rest of the female gods, long braided red like orange hair, fair complexion, and always carries with her a longbow and a never-ending supply of arrows. She didn't like wearing armor like most of her brothers and sisters. She figured her reflexes were faster than most of the gods except for Hermes, and her natural talent for pinpoint accuracy was enough for her. But Artemis wasn't like most of the other gods. She wanted to stay a virgin forever and didn't really like most men outside her family. Artemis is wearing a green robe, but unlike most of the females, hers don't hug any of her curves cause she doesn't want any male's attention. She looks at her brother Apollo and tells him, "We need to get serious about this, or we all could end up powerless and eventually die." Aphrodite perks up at that from looking at her reflection in the mirror. Aphrodite is the goddess of love and beauty, none of the goddesses are more beautiful than her, not even Hera. She's curvy, the perfection of beauty that would make any woman jealous and all men want her. She wears a pink robe like most of the other goddesses that hug her body perfectly. She's all nervous now and worried, but not for everyone else. "I can't let this beautiful body die." Her husband lays a hand on her shoulder. He's the god of the forge. He's big, strong and bald with a tan from working on the forge all day. He always carries his giant hammer for his work, and because he walks with a slight limp. He wears a dark grey robe. He tells her that he will do anything to keep her alive, and she just rolls her eyes at him. Finally Hera, queen of the gods and Zeus's wife, speaks up. She is a tall beautiful woman with long curly blonde hair, slender and fit, and she is wearing a peach robe. She is flustered about all this bickering and arguing, and has finally heard enough of it and has an idea. At this Zeus is interested in what she has to say. At that all the gods stopped arguing and listened, fearing what might happen if they didn't. With all the attention she suggests, "Why don't we find hosts to live in, and over time, we will gain our powers back and hopefully be together." Zeus wonders what kind of mortal can contain us. Ares hates the idea and states that "Last time I was in a host body, it was the body of a 10-year-old little girl." Most of the other gods burst into laughter, and Ares is getting mad, turning red, and flames start to spread on him. "It's not funny," he shouts. Zeus chimed in and said it is funny, and it was more of a punishment from starting too many wars and conflicts. After everyone's laughing fit they all agreed, but the hardest part would be deciding who would be the hosts. They ponder for a few moments and then hear a loud booming voice down from the underworld, saying, "May I be of some assistance?" And Zeus, Hades and Poseidon all look at each other and ask what in the hell would Dad want. So out of curiosity they travel down to Tartarus, where they find their grandfather chained up and locked up in a cell asking to help. "What do you want, Kronos?" He is a giant of a man, bigger and taller than any of the gods, all of his armor taken off and his sickle outside the cell chained to the wall. "I know we have had some misunderstandings in the past." "No," saying Hades, "eating us as babies and holding us in your stomach for over 20 years, afraid we were going to dethrone you because you wanted to rule over everything is not a misunderstanding." "What can I say? I was young, scared and stupid." "You got that right," says Hera. "But how can you help us in any way?" "Well, being the god of time, I can transport you to another world where there are hundreds of possible hosts from you all to choice from. No one on this planet is strong enough to contain you. But you give me a chance, I can send you there and I can save my children and I'll stay right here. There's nothing on this planet I want or need." All the gods wonder what the catch is. Zeus speaks up and asks, "What do you get out of this?" Kronos says, "Nothing, as I said before, there's nothing here I want. I send you there and I stay here." Poseidon looks at Hera and asks if she has a spell to reverse this if it goes wrong. She nods yes, I won't allow him to trick us. "Okay, we will see how this works out." Kronos extends his hand barely out of the bars and everyone gathers around Zeus and touches him and trusts him. Zeus finally after a few seconds grabs his father's hand. Kronos struggles to stand up and wishes them all luck. And just like that, in a flash of light, all 12 gods disappear. Above a mostly blue planet. In a matter of moments they were all floating in a mostly blue ocean with not really any land in sight. "Wow," says Poseidon as he looks over all the water. "I'm going love it here. It's like 90% water. There's not a lot of land on this planet, so how can we tell if there's enough strong people here to be our hosts?" says Hermes. Hera gets everyone's attention. "One of us will have to find a host to prolong the rest of us, or we will have a matter of days to live. If 4 or 5 of us find hosts soon, we can possibly prolong this for a year or more." "Awesome," says Apollo as he sits on surprisingly nothing, smiles and plays his flute. Ares looks at him, rolls his eyes and whispers, "Stupid carefree child." "Where are we?" asks Zeus. "Some place called the East Blue," says Poseidon. Everyone looks at him questionably. Athena asks him, "How do you know that we are above a planet we don't know?" "The ocean told me," Poseidon with a big smile. "Well, let's try to find a host and hopefully they are strong enough." I agree with Zeus, Hades and Ares. They look off in 3 different directions and see if they can see an island or anything with a strong presence. "Hey," say Artemis, "there's an island." "On island?" Right before they got to the island they could see a small fishing boat with a teenage boy on it off the coast. "Maybe he will do," says Zeus, "but let's watch for a little bit to be sure." "Really, he doesn't look that strong," says Ares. But they all look down and watch. The boy is slightly tan-skinned from being outside a lot, about 5'7", wearing a red vest with no sleeves and wide open to show off his body, jean shorts and classic sandals, and weirdly enough a wide-brimmed straw hat sitting on his head. Next moment a giant sea snake springs out of the water to eat the whole ship and the boy along with it. Everyone looks and sees with much interest as Ares, Hades and Poseidon are laughing till they cry and yelling about so much for being a good host he's about to be eaten. Then the boy smirks as Zeus and the others are still watching. He swings back for a punch and throws it, and his arm stretches beyond normal limits and knocks the sea giant out in one punch. Everyone's jaws drop in confusion and shock, and Zeus is just standing there smiling. I'm going down there because I found my host. Just as Zeus floats down to the boy, he just snaps his arm back into place. He goes right into the boy and he jolts with shock. Hey, says the boy, what are you doing in my body and that hurts? Sorry, and I'm here to offer my help. I don't need help, I'm going to be the king of pirates. Oh really? Well, I'm king of the gods. I don't believe in gods. Oh really? Inside the boy's body thunder rolls and lightning strikes everywhere. The boy is amazed with stars in his arms. You're a devil fruit user. What's a devil fruit? Asks Zeus. It's what I have seen as he stretches his mouth to incredible lengths. Wow, but no, I was born with these powers. Wow, the boy's stars in his eyes got bigger and said, that's awesome. So can I help you to help me? My family needs help finding hosts. Sure, as long as I stay in control of my body. I'm fine with that. I'll share my powers with you. Great, they could come in handy. The more you get noticed you get, the more powerful you and I become. Let's shake on it. By the way, my name's Monkey D. Luffy, said the Straw Hat Boy, future king of the pirates. Alright, says Zeus, let's shake. As soon as they shook hands, Zeus became part of Luffy. Luffy's eyes turned pure white and had some electricity run over his skin and some strike the water. As Luffy's eyes returned to normal. This is going to be fun, as he has lighting run back and forth over his fist. Well, let's start this adventure, he yells. About an hour later of random sailing, they come upon a whirlpool. Luffy, what are we going to do about this? I don't have the power to float us out of here. You can float, with stars in his eyes. I'm god of the sky, of course I can, but I can't right now, we don't have the power yet. Well, I might have an idea, says Luffy, but chances are you're not going to like it. What's that? Asks Zeus with a quizzical look, and before Luffy could say anything he eats an entire barrel of apples and hops in. What are you doing? Luffy closes the lid on the barrel. My idea is let luck be on our side, and with sharp teeth, Zeus yells, what? We are going to die that way. All the gods above are rolling in laughter. Really, he just got a host body, a strong one, and he's going to die already. Next thing they knew, into the whirlpool they went. A few minutes later, the gods are all staring down looking for the barrel to surface and be sure that Luffy and Zeus are okay. Hades speaks up, can I be king of the gods now? All the gods look at him like he's crazy or has a screw loose. Then Hades gets hit a few times by Hera and Poseidon for even asking a stupid question. Hades stands up with bumps all over his head. Without any of them noticing, not even Poseidon, a couple miles away, a barrel pops up out of the water Luffy and Zeus and bumps into a big white cruise ship. Two sailors on deck see the barrel floating in the water and they think, what's the harm in bringing it on board? They were both wearing blue and white vertical striped shirts with blue pants and black shoes. The only difference was one was skinny and short and the other was big, strong looking but kind of fat. The skinny one was throwing a grappling hook trying to grab the barrel. Maybe there's alcohol or food in it, looking at it with excitement. After failing to catch the barrel, then his buddy stepped up and said, let me try. He hooked it with one try and lifted it up onto the deck. Before he could even lift the barrel on his shoulder, he dropped it after seeing a pirate flag come out from a cropping of rocks close by. They both ran away to warn others that pirates are coming. The barrel starts rolling around on the deck and eventually rolls down some stairs to a storage room. A couple minutes later, after a lot of running and yelling on deck, a young boy with pink mop-like hair wearing a thin-lined blue and white striped shirt, black pants and black shoes, pokes his head into the storage room, hoping to find it empty. He sees this big barrel in the middle of the room laying on its side and decides to pick it up and try to drag it to the ship. He wants to make it look like he's being helpful so won't get hit. As he struggles with the barrel, three large men come in behind him. Koby, one of them, yells, which makes the pink-haired boy yell and drop the barrel. What are you guys doing? Asks Koby. Coming to check on you, and I see you found a nice barrel of food or alcohol. I hope it's grog. Let's open it, says the biggest pirate. No, yells Koby, Lady Alvida will find out and we all will be in trouble. Not if no one tells her, as the big pirate stares down at the boy, scaring him to death. With almost no effort, the big man picks up the barrel and sits it right side up. I'm going to break it open, so we will have to drink it all before we leave. Koby is cowering in a corner, afraid of what might happen if they are caught. As the big man is beginning to break open the barrel with a punch, and his two friends are getting all excited. The barrel bursts open with Luffy standing up, punching the big guy right in the chin, knocking him out. That was a great nap. And everyone just stares in shock. Zeus yawns in Luffy's head, saying, how did we get in the barrel and escape that giant whirlpool? Luffy tells him, I jumped in the barrel, closed the lid, and I guess dumb luck got us through. Zeus bonks Luffy on the head for being so reckless. Luffy gains a small tick mark on his forehead and no one knows why. Then Luffy looks down and sees the man knocked out and says why is he lying on the floor, he will catch a cold like that. The two other pirates yell at him that he knocked them out and pulled some swords out to kill the young man. Koby covers his eyes because he doesn't want to see this. Luffy glances at them as they raise their swords to bring down on him. In the next second there's a quick flash of light, the swords are in the ceiling, and the two pirates are lying on the floor scared and holding their hands in pain. They quickly grab their unconscious friend and drag him out of that room to find their captain. Koby just stares at Luffy wondering what truly happened. Luffy looks at him, and Koby quickly jumps back out of reaction. Shushi, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me, says Koby, you just knocked out and scared away 3 of Lady Alvida's men. What were you doing in the barrel anyway? Luffy looks at the boy and says surviving, and right after that asks him if there's any food nearby. Koby sweat drops and says yeah, just follow me, and Luffy walks right behind him happy to get some food. After getting on Alvida's ship and getting into the food storage room, Luffy went to town eating a barrel of apples in minutes. How are you able to eat so much? Asked Koby. I have always been doing that. Well, we should be able to hide from Alvida from here. Why are you so scared of this Alvida lady, Koby? Koby looked at Luffy and told him his story. 2 years ago I was on my home island and I went on a boat to go fishing. It turns out it was a boat going to a pirate ship. So instead of robbing me and killing me, they basically kidnapped me and made me their cabin boy. Ha, laughs Luffy. That's so funny, how Zeus. The boy got turned into a slave and trapped here against his will, said Zeus. That's not funny, I don't even know your name. My name is Luffy and I'm going to be king of the pirates. Oh, that's nice, I'm Koby, and what? You can't be king of the pirates, you're just a teen like me and it's impossible. 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 Bonk. Luffy hits Koby over the head. Don't tell me my dream is impossible. I'll live till my dream comes true or die trying. Then he looks at Koby nursing the bump on his head. Do you have a dream, Koby? Asked Luffy. Koby looks up. Yeah, I do. I want to be a marine, a strong one, and catch pirates like Alvida. Just then something came falling through the ceiling. Who are you going to catch, Koby? The big blob that came through the ceiling asked. Koby looks scared out of his mind and hides behind Luffy. The blob stood up and now you can see a very wide ugly woman with a pink flannel shirt with a black tank top under it, blue pants and red shoes, and she was carrying a big mace over her shoulder. Who's this? Koby, Luffy asked him. That's Iron Mace Lady Pirate Alvida. What, that fat ugly old hag is what you're scared of? Koby and Alvida's jaws dropped. Zeus is laughing his butt off telling Luffy that was a good one. Luffy, what are you saying, she will kill you, yells Koby. Alvida is standing behind them both getting pissed off at that comment. Luffy turns to Koby and says well she's bigger than a house and looks like it's been abandoned for years. Now even Koby is snickering about that. Koby, who is the most beautiful woman in the world, yelled at Alvida. Koby was about to answer and then looked at Luffy and then yelled it's not a fat old ugly sea hag like you. That a boy, says Zeus, and Luffy smirks. Alvida lifts her big mace-like club and about to swing it onto Koby's head. In mid-swing Luffy jumps in front of it. Koby is shocked and thinks for a second Luffy is dead. Until from under the mace he sees sparks of electricity and the mace breaks into pieces. Then he sees Luffy is completely fine, not even a scratch. Koby asks Luffy how he did that. Luffy looks at Koby and stretches his mouth to abnormal lengths and tells him I'm a rubber man. I ate a devil fruit as a kid. Really, shouts an excited Koby, but that doesn't explain the lighting I saw that broke her mace. Luffy smiles and says oh, I got that power from a friend. While they are talking Alvida is standing there getting more pissed off by the second. Then she just yells I'm going to kill you both. Alvida runs at them wanting to kill them with her bare hands. She gets overly angry over the dumbest thing Zeus says. Luffy turns to her swinging back his arm extremely far and then Koby hears Gumo Gomu no Taser pistol with lighting surrounding his fist. He throws a mighty punch right at Alvida's stomach and the electricity alone knocks her unconscious and the force of the punch sends her flying till all you see of her is a little star in the distance. Wow, that's some punch you got there, kid, this trip is going to be one hell of a trip. Luffy smirks and smiles with anticipation of Zeus's words. Then Luffy looks over Alvida's former crew and tells them to get Koby a boat, he's going to be a marine. And they scamper off quickly to do so. 1 hour later out at sea. Koby looks at Luffy and asks him why he set him free. All Luffy says is you are a good guy and you deserve to live out your dream. Koby also asks him about his so-called powers he got from this mysterious friend of his. He seems like a trusting kid, you can tell him, says Zeus. Luffy looks at Koby and says it started a few hours ago before I met you. I was setting out to sea for the first time and this old guy appears in my head and asks to use my body so he won't die and I said sure and with that I got these cool powers and he talks to me in my head. Wow, Koby knows Luffy isn't lying. So asks Luffy where are we heading? Koby looks around and says, well, if you want to help make me a marine, it looks like we are heading to Shell's town. There's a marine base there, but I've heard that pirate hunter Zoro is there. He sounds like fun. Maybe I'll have him join my crew. Koby quickly looked at Luffy and told him that Zoro is a madman known for capturing or killing pirates just for fun. Sounds like someone in my family, says Zeus. Really, who? Luffy. Zeus looks at him and says, I'll tell you later. Well, I'll make my decision after I meet him. 2 hours later, a few minutes off the shore to Shell's town. Koby quickly wakes up Luffy telling him we are almost at shore and that he was excited and scared at the same time. You still want to recruit that monster, don't you? What monster, asks Luffy. As they walk down the street, Koby answers him. You know, pirate hunter Zoro. With that, everyone around them run away or way as far as possible from them. I guess they are scared of a fearsome criminal. I just hope I'm allowed in the Marines. I hear the Marine Captain Morgan is tough. And with that, the villagers run away or keep away as far as they can from the boys. Shishi, this is a funny town, let's go get some food. In a nice restaurant, both of them are eating. Koby is finishing his second plate. While Luffy is on plate number 12, everyone around him is shocked by how much he can eat. After Luffy was done stuffing his face, they pay and head towards the marine base. Upon getting close to the base, Luffy wonders if Zoro is captured, where would they keep him? Probably in a very secure place, says Zeus. Koby says he might be in the jailer basement where he can't be seen. Luffy hops on the wall and says maybe that's him. Koby climbs up slowly and is shocked to see him. In the open, Zoro the pirate hunter is tied to a cross. About 5 foot 8 inches tall, slightly tan, very muscular but not too much, white shirt, dark green pants, a wide green sash around his waist, and a black bandana on his head. Zeus looks in shock that he was this much wrong. Zoro slightly looks up and says, hey, get the hell away from here or I'm going to kill you. Luffy smirks, knowing he can't since he's all tied up. Luffy hops the fence and gets really close to Zoro and with his signature smile point blank, asks Zoro if he would join his crew on their journey. Zoro tells him the last thing I want to be is a pirate. Before Luffy could argue anymore, a little girl he faintly remembers pops her head over the wall and before Koby could stop her, hops over and walks right to Zoro. She looks up and asks him if he is hungry. She made these special rice balls for him. Right before he could answer, a teen with a wide head, a nice suit and a blonde bowl haircut followed by Marines walks in. Thank God, Marines, she will be safe now, thinks Koby. The young teen asked them if they knew the penalty for talking or trying to help a criminal as he was talking to Luffy and the little girl. The boy called Helmeppo was semi-nicely dressed in a suit but had a very cocky double cleft chin and long bowl-style blonde hair. The penalty is the same as the criminal death. The little girl is shocked, but Luffy just keeps looking at the younger teen with a blank face. Helmeppo turns towards the Marines and tells them to throw the little girl over the wall and out of here. At first the Marine refuses, but Helmeppo grabs the Marine's collar and yells, do I have to tell daddy that you won't listen to me? The Marine looks a little scared and quickly goes over to the girl as Luffy just watches to see what happens. What is he going to do to that little girl? Asks Zeus. Luffy looks a little concerned for the little girl now. The Marine picks her up and whispers he's sorry for this right before he throws her over the wall. Quick as a flash, Luffy puts lighting on his feet and faster than anyone could see, Luffy was on the other side of the wall holding the girl safely. What the hell were they thinking, harming a little girl like that? You ought to go pack and give them a little hell for that, yells Luffy in his head. No, Zeus says, getting her home safe and learning what I can about Zoro is more important. Koby hops down from the wall to see how Luffy did that. Let's take this little girl home, says Luffy. Back at little girl's mom's restaurant. Thanks again, cries the girl, crying as her mom puts plates of food in front of Luffy and Koby. Koby was into his second plate of food, clearly getting full, but Luffy was on plate 10 with no slowing down, except time was not on their side. The little girl named Rika told the boys that 3 days ago the Marine captain's son came into the restaurant. He had his dog, but it looked like a crazy starving wolf with white fur and bloodshot eyes, and he let the dog loose, and it started growling and looking to bite or destroy anything in its way. That wolf knocked over chairs and a table. And then it turned towards Rika, and the boy didn't look like he wasn't going to do anything if the dog bites her. Just as the wolf lunges at her, a sword from out of nowhere simply cuts the dog and has it laying dead at Rika's feet. Rika is happy she isn't hurt, and everyone else is happy to see that as well. But now he's mad because someone killed his innocent little dog. Helmeppo looks up and sees who cut his dog. Alone at the bar with back turned sits Zoro, peacefully still eating. Helmeppo freaks out and his whole body starts shaking. Calling Zoro out and telling him that he will tell his dad about this and you will be sorry. Zoro slightly looks over shoulder and says that I'm not afraid of your dad and that wild wolf you call a dog needs to be put down. Well, Helmeppo wasn't going to have it like that, so he threatened him instead. For killing my dog and defying me. If you go peacefully and be arrested for a week with no food and no attempts to escape, I will let you go free, and I won't harm the owner of this bar and her little brat either. Zoro stands up and sheaths his sword and gives it to one of the marines and tells him to take him in, and after a week I go free. That's awful, says Koby. Zeus is slightly mad that a marine's son is spoiled enough to threaten anyone and get away with it. Luffy is still eating slightly slower now and has a blank look on his face. Just then Helmeppo walks in and asks for a glass of wine. Bartender tells him he's too young. He looks at her, grabs her by the collar and tells her to give him the wine or his dad will find out about this and have you arrested. She, scared for her life, gives him the wine. He sips it a little, then starts bragging that tomorrow morning he is going to execute Zoro in front of everyone. Koby leans into Luffy and whispers it's only been 3 days he was supposed to let Zoro go after a week of no food and being tied up, but now he's executing him for no reason. Luffy gets mad when he stands up and punches Helmeppo right across the face, yelling that it was a love tap compared to what he should get. Luffy walks out of the bar, and after a few seconds Koby follows behind him. Where are we going, Luffy? Luffy slightly looks over his shoulder to Koby and says we are going to free Zoro. Zeus is excited and congrats Luffy on that punch. Luffy tells him that it's only the right thing to do. Luffy walks to the marine base again and hops over the wall and walks right up to Zoro and tells him that he wants him to join his crew. Zoro is surprised that a pirate is going to ask a pirate hunter to join him. Zoro tells him that he wants nothing to do with being a pirate and that all he wants is to be let go in a couple days and try to fulfill his dream. Luffy just smiles and asks him where his swords were, and Zoro said they took them to the marine base after he was arrested. Luffy looks around at the base then back at Zoro. Luffy says if I get your swords for you, you can join my crew. Zoro looks at him like he's crazy and about to yell at him that he still won't join him. Luffy runs past him and stretches one arm till they reach the top of the base and yells Gomu Gomu no grappling hook. And tries to slowly raise himself to the top at a very fast speed. Zoro is shocked that a man can stretch like that. Luffy overshoots the top of the building and grabs onto something and lands, surprising everyone. As Luffy lands on what appears to be a statue they were trying to raise. The Marines yell at him to get down or you'll ruin Captain Morgan's statue. Luffy looks down and sees the statue that looks like the Marine captain, tall, strong-looking, dark-tanned skin, short blonde hair, metal trap for his lower jaw, and aura placing one of his hands. Zeus speaks up and tells Luffy that this statue was built from the townspeople money and that Morgan sees himself better than anyone, like a god. Destroy it, he tells him. Luffy raises his leg, stretching it a little and putting electricity in his leg and slams it into the statue, saying Gumo Gumo no electric axe. And the statue breaks into hundreds of pieces. Everyone stands in shock as Helmeppo notices it's Luffy and yells at his dad to kill him, and Luffy turns around and grabs Helmeppo by the collar and drags him through the base. Morgan is steaming mad for one that boy destroyed his statue, which goes against his greatness, and he defied the way by barging into the base and dragging his worthless son around. He yells for all the Marines to chase and find that straw-hated boy and capture him for execution. As Luffy is running through the base, Koby has climbed over the wall and reached Zoro. Zoro looks down at Koby and asks him if he is with that straw-hated kid, and Koby tells him for a while yes, as he tries to undo Zoro's knots. Why are you trying to untie me? I only have 4 days left before I'm set free. Koby tells him no he doesn't, because Helmeppo has decided for no reason to execute you tomorrow morning in front of everyone. Zoro's eyes widen in shock at hearing this news. That's why Luffy is running amok in the base to get his swords to free him from dying, Koby tells him. Just as Koby is making some success with the knots, some Marines followed by Morgan himself approach the execution field. Morgan asks if this whole town is full of ignorant maggots who want to die by his hand. This shocks Koby and Zoro, thinking they have run out of time. Luffy is still running through the base and yells at a semi-conscious Helmeppo to where his room is, where Zoro's swords are being kept. He tells him that they already passed it a few doors back. Luffy bonks him on the head for not telling him earlier. This knocks Helmeppo out as he is dragged back to his room. Luffy opens the door, dropping Helmeppo to see a childish room with toys and stuffed animals lying around, and the walls are pink instead of blue. Zeus questions if this was a girl's room or if Helmeppo was just gay and trying to hide it. Luffy shrugs at Zeus as he drops Helmeppo on the floor. Luffy sees 3 swords propped up along the wall together in the corner. He asks Helmeppo which swords are Zoro's, but he is unconscious and he grabs all 3 of them and runs to the window where he sees the Marines and Morgan aiming rifles at Zoro and Koby. Luffy grabs a hold of the window frame and stretches his arms a medium distance and lets go. He breaks the window and lands in front of Zoro and Koby, arms reaching out wide with 3 swords on his back, looking like a human shield. He lands just as the Marines open fire. Zoro and Morgan are in shock, thinking Luffy is dead, but the bullet stretches his body and flings the round bullets back at the Marines, and one flies right next to Morgan's cheek. The devil fruit user out here in the East Blue. Luffy just smiles and stretches his mouth out abnormally long and surprises Morgan and Zoro. Zoro looks at Koby, who is still trying to untie him, asking if Luffy is really that strong, and if it was real, and Koby shakes his head yes for both. While Morgan is still shocked and thinking how to deal with Luffy, the Straw Hat Boy walks up to Zoro and asks him which sword was his. Zoro with a blank face says all three of them are his, he's a master of three sword style, and I'm not ready to die, so what the hell, I guess you have a pirate to join you. Yaw, yells Luffy. Zeus has a smirk on his face, thinking finally another host for God, but who? Now would you untie me, yells Zoro. Luffy struggles with the ropes. Even though he has the swords, he doesn't know how to use them. Morgan notices they aren't even paying attention to him, so he tells his men if bullets won't hurt him, cut him with your sword, men. As the Marines pull out their swords and run at the two pirates, Luffy finally gets one arm untied. Zoro yells at him with sharp teeth to give him his swords. Morgan yells that anyone who defies my greatness shall die. All the Marines attack Zoro and Luffy at the same time, and you just hear a loud clang. Zoro, with a sword in each hand and one in his mouth, has blocked all the Marines' attacks, and they can't budge. Wow, Luffy says you're so cool. Zeus is impressed with his strength and sword skill. Zoro tells the Marines the first one to move dies. All the Marines start to cry from fear. Bunch of honorable weaklings, says Zeus. Zoro looks up at Luffy, who was standing in front of him, and says, now I'm a pirate, but hear this. Zeus's eyebrows perk up in interest. I have a dream to be the strongest swordsman in the world. If you do anything to abandon my dream, I'll kill you. Zeus is proud to have a man like him around. Luffy smiles and says it only makes sense, since your captain is going to be king of the pirates. I wouldn't have it any other way. Behind all the Marines, Morgan is standing there yelling at them to stop fooling around and cut those outlaws to shreds. Hey Zoro, says Luffy, duck. Zoro quickly ducks, and next thing the Marines see is Luffy Gumo Gumo no Taser whip. His stretched out leg hits the Marines, knocks them all on their ass, and the electricity shoots them all back a few feet. Morgan is in shock that they are both that strong. The Marines all tell Captain Morgan the Straw Hat Boy is too strong, we can't fight him, and Zoro is just as strong, we can't fight them both at the same time. Shut up, yells Morgan, I will not tolerate weakness in this unit. So any of you who think we can't win, shoot ourselves in the head. On my mark, and half the Marines raise their rifles to their head, about to pull the trigger. Just then Luffy jumps towards Morgan. Luffy versus Captain Morgan. Morgan blocks Luffy's punch with his axe, and Luffy still hits it. I'm your enemy, try to put me to death. Behind them, Koby yells Luffy. Destroy this lousy navy, they are nothing if they are this corrupt. Zeus is impressed with Koby's words and smiles. That's all Luffy needed to know. Let's end this. Luffy states, pummeling Captain Morgan, and everyone is surprised that Morgan is losing to a young pirate that's nobody. Luffy smirks, saying let's end this, and lands a Gomu Gomu Taser bullet, and though Morgan was still standing, he was unconscious. Well, that ends what Luffy says. Just as Luffy turns around, he sees Helmeppo holding a pistol to Koby's head. Helmeppo yells at Luffy and Zoro that if they don't turn themselves in and let them both be executed, he will shoot Koby in the head. At first Zoro was thinking of doing just that, but looking in Luffy's eyes told him no. Luffy started walking towards Helmeppo, and he's scared and shaking, but the pistol still pointed at Koby's head. As Luffy walked closer, Morgan, still unconscious, began to move like he's going to kill Luffy with his arms out, like he's going to choke him. Luffy stops walking and cocks his arm back as Morgan was very close, and Luffy didn't see him. Luffy shoots his fist forward and hits Helmeppo right in the face, knocking him out, and he drops the gun. At the same time that happened, Zoro shot forward with all three swords ready and struck Morgan, cutting him pretty deeply, and he fell down from his injuries. Luffy looks around and sees Zoro, and Zoro says, you're welcome, Captain. Zoro walks over to Luffy, well, since you helped me escape and I helped you, I guess we are on the same crew. Luffy shakes his head, yep, you're the first mate. Luffy reaches his hand out soundly. Inside Luffy's head, Luffy and Zeus are smirking cause they know what's going to happen. Zoro reaches out and says yes and grasps Luffy's hand, and all of a sudden a spasm goes up Zoro's arm into his head. Then he just stands there. Inside Zoro's head. Zoro is standing there on full alert, wondering what just happened. Behind him a tall figure appears, and Zoro turns around ready to take on anything that comes at him. The figure has long black straight hair, kinda pale skin, skinny yet muscle bound like a weightlifter and covered in a long black robe, and a darkness smoke coming out from under the robe. Zoro looks at him and asks, who the hell are you? The figure laughs funny, you say hell. Why is that? Because your captain has a baby brother in him. Luffy made a deal with him so he can live, that's why he has the extra lighting power. I wonder where that came from. Luffy's partner's name is Zeus, my little brother. I'm Hades, god of the dead. Hades told Zoro he piqued his interest with his skill and strength. Zoro looks at him and tells him I don't believe in gods. Hades is a little surprised at this. Zoro looks at Hades and says I don't need help to fulfill my dream, it's like cheating. It's not cheating, it's a boost to get closer to your dream, you still will have to train till you get there. I still don't need your help. How about this, we duel for it, says Hades. You win and me and the other gods leave you alone and pick another crewmate when they come around. If you lose you become my host, but you have control of everything and you have use of my power and advice. Zoro is intrigued by his offer, but has a question for the supposed god of death. Zoro asks if Hades is a swordsman and he shakes his head that he hasn't used a sword in a long time. So says Zoro, are there any other so-called gods that are better with a sword than you? Well, there's my nephew Ares. He's better with a sword than me. He's better than anyone when you put a weapon in his hands. Well then I'll fight him, says Zoro. But says Hades, me, his father Zeus and our brother Poseidon are all stronger than him. I'm your best fighter that isn't taken. What about your other brother you mentioned, he doesn't have a host does he, says Zoro. No he doesn't, but his power is water that won't help a swordsman like you, but darkness will. Says Hades with a dark smirk. Fine, says Zoro, I'll fight, be prepared to fight me at your best. Zoro pulls all three swords and puts his bandana on his head and white sword in his mouth. Hades focuses for a second and summons a long black double-edged sword. Wow, that is an impressive sword for a man who doesn't use a sword. Oh, this old thing I haven't used in years, but I'm sure I'll remember how to use it. As darkness starts to flow out of his large black ridged sword, Zoro is surprised and impressed with his talent and asks him if it was a devil fruit. Hades asked what a devil fruit was. Zoro, it is a fruit that you eat and gives you these strange weird powers. Well, Hades told him that he and his siblings were born with these powers. Well, that's interesting, says Zoro. Well, let's get this duel started. Surprisingly at the same time, they both go on guard before they rush each other and clash. Hades was a little surprised that Zoro was stronger than he expected to come from a mortal. Zoro was very surprised by the strength coming from this man claiming to be a god. I guess that means you're not someone to mess with, says Zoro. So he takes a stance on guard, ready to be sure and ready for anything this man could throw at him. Hades held out his large sword in front of him and rushed Zoro head on, swinging straight down onto Zoro. He barely blocked his attack because of the strength and weight of the sword. Zoro used all he had to push up and give him room to attack, but was no good. Hades came down even harder and stronger, pushing Zoro back a few feet. Zoro was thinking he's got to think of a way to beat him, and pure strength isn't going to do it. So he got into position for his best attack. He moved faster than he has before, crossing all three swords at a single point. At the point of contact it was stopped by Hades using the flat side of his sword and his hand to stop Zoro's attack in its tracks. Zoro falls on his knees in a little bit of depression because that attack has never been stopped before. Then Zoro gets up and starts attacking randomly and quickly, all being stopped effortlessly, so much for being rusty and not using a sword in forever. Feels like Hades was just practicing the other day. Just when it might have the upper, he slashes out with his right hand and in a blink Hades is gone. Then a black tip touches the side of Zoro's neck, knowing he lost, and Hades didn't have a scratch on him from their bout. Hades says, you lose, so you get to be my host with all my powers, free will and advice from me when needed. Sounds like a deal to you? Zoro gets up and turns around and looks right in Hades' eyes and sighs and says fine. As you humans do, let's shake on it. Zoro grabs his hand. His whole body shakes as Hades fades into Zoro, and you hear Hades say how he will always be here when needed. Back in Shell's town, Zoro opens his eyes and they are pitch black as coal, and Koby is a little scared of him. Luffy asks Zoro how he is feeling. As Zoro's eyes go back to normal, how long was I gone? Luffy said only a few seconds. Zeus says with how his eyes went black, he knows Zoro has Hades, god of death, in him and Zeus's older brother. Zoro looks at Luffy and says, you know how they call me Pirate Hunter? Luffy says yes, and Zoro smirks and says, now call me Demon Hunter. Hades says he likes that nickname. Just then Zoro collapses onto the ground from not eating in 3 days. Koby and Luffy gently picks up Zoro and carries him off to eat. All the Marines surprised that Morgan got beat and happy and started jumping for joy. As Zoro wakes up and notices that they are sitting in Rika's mom's restaurant and a big plate of food is sitting in front of him. Luffy was already sitting there and eating, stuffing his face like always. Zoro was so hungry that he didn't argue, he just started eating and thanking them and telling them how good the food was. Koby was slowly eating while trying to defend his plate from Luffy stealing food. Zoro was laughing at Koby until he noticed Luffy was trying to steal food from him and he wasn't going to have that. The Marines walked into the place. By then Zoro was on plate 4 and Luffy was on 8, and sadly Koby was barely on plate 2. They asked nicely if Luffy really was a pirate, and Luffy smiled and said yes, and that he finally got a crewmate in Zoro, and Zoro was surprised and with sharp teeth yelled at Luffy that he was the only other member. Then the Marines nicely asked if they would leave. Luffy and Zoro stopped arguing to ask why. The Marine in charge said even though they beat corrupt Marine Morgan, they are still pirates and they have them staying here. Luffy thanked for the food and quietly got up with Zoro and started to leave. The commander asked if this younger pink-haired boy was with him. Luffy remembered how Koby wanted to be a Marine, so almost didn't say anything and started to walk away, but from behind him, he heard something that surprised him, Zoro and the gods. Koby stood up and said that he was with Luffy and told the commander when he was younger he wanted to be a Marine, but after seeing how corrupt they can be and easily scared and willing to kill yourselves, cause a bossy delusional captain told them to I don't want to be a part of them. Zeus said he didn't expect the boy to do that. Hades had just met the boy and was surprised that he wanted to toss his dream away to stay with him. Both Luffy and Zoro smiled and smirked at him, and Luffy said then let's go as they walked to the shore and saw the little dinghy they came in and were instantly sad and wanting a bigger boat, knowing they weren't going to get one. As they set off they hear boots on the dock. The Marines are all standing there saluting them, and all 3 pirates are sitting there smiling. The commander said for saluting pirates no food for 3 days, and the Marines cheered. Zoro started laughing at their reaction and asked where we were next. Luffy shrugged and said he has no idea any place is an adventure. Zoro is shocked that he is following an idiot. The boy is sweating from every pore on his body. I didn't know it was gonna be this hard guys, Koby stated. Luffy smiled saying, I went through a lot worse than this to get as strong as I am. Few hours ago Koby stood up and asked Luffy and Zoro to train him so he would be a useful member of this crew. I want to be able to use my fists and a sword, said Koby. Zeus and Hades liked the idea that way the boy wouldn't be dead weight for them. Did it sound wrong to Luffy and Zoro? Yes, but in a way they were right. So Luffy and Zoro told Koby that they would train him, but that he would go through hell. They decided Zoro would train him first, then Luffy would get his chance. At the moment Koby wasn't sure whose training he was more scared of. But he still wanted to do this. He was determined to help his future crew. Zoro's training seemed really tough to start. Koby started doing push-ups till he couldn't raise himself up again off the deck of the boat. Then sit-ups and squats till his whole body hurts. Zoro and Luffy sat there and watched, telling him that until he builds up his strength, they can't teach him how to use a sword or fight, which made Koby want to try harder. Somewhere farther out at sea, a decent-sized boat glides up to this other boat with a cute pretty red-haired girl on it and a treasure chest. The 3 men on the boat were pirates with strangely enough clown makeup on. The young girl lifts her head and tells them that if they give her some food and water, that they can have everything in the chest. They were so excited about the treasure that they climbed on her boat without giving her food and checked the treasure just to open it, and it's empty. They turn around to yell at the girl for tricking them, but she is up and looking healthy and on their boat sailing away. I'd be careful, there's a storm brewing to the west, the girl stated in warning. They looked at the sky and thought she was crazy. It was a clear day. Then out of nowhere a storm hit them and made the little boat they were on capsize and fall apart. Back with Luffy and crew. Koby was still training, but Zoro and Luffy let him stop to eat and pick it up later on. When Luffy looked up he saw a giant bird and wanted to catch it for all of them to eat. Gumo Gumo no grappling pistol as he shot up to the bird to realize the bird was bigger than he thought, and the bird caught him in his beak and started to fly away with him. Zeus is yelling at Luffy for being so dumb to try and take down a giant bird and get caught by it. And yet Hades is laughing his ass off, but yet still mad that his brother picked an idiot as a host. Zoro was mad and asked Koby to help him row the boat to try and catch up to Luffy. But with Koby's limited strength and training for the last few hours, he was almost useless as they kept rowing in circles. So Zoro took both oars and started rowing in Luffy's direction, with Koby leading him. Even though Zoro was rowing the boat didn't mean he couldn't find a way to have Koby train. Hades told Zoro he needs Koby to help find their no-brain captain so they can both continue to train this boy, otherwise Hades was lost on what to do. So he pushed him as hard as he could without losing direction of where to go. With Luffy was getting tired of his head being stuck in this bird's beak. He then questions what he should do to get out of this. Zeus speaks up and tells Luffy don't do anything yet since you're still over water you will die. Luffy respects that and doesn't want to kill either of them. So he stayed still for a few moments till he heard a boom, and at that moment a red cannonball was speeding towards them at a high speed. Zeus quickly says now you can use the lighting or we are going to be blown up by that cannonball. Luffy releases and fries the giant bird just at the right second of the cannonball hitting the bird. He then falls and thankfully he's not going to fall in water. A red-headed girl is running from a group of 3 pirates chasing her and they are catching up to her. In a last-ditch effort she yells, if there is a god I could use the help right now. Like it was slow motion Luffy falls and crashes into the ground and makes a crater. The cute red-headed girl looks into the hole thinking whoever fell into it must be dead. Just then Luffy sits up and surprises the girl thinking he is a zombie and runs away. Huh, I wonder what scared her. Luffy thought. That would probably be you after you fall out of the sky and sit up like nothing happened, you idiot. Exclaimed Zeus. The three pirates behind Luffy stare in shock but suddenly have a pistol and two swords pointing at him. Luffy turns around and sees this and asks why. The pirate holding the gun at Luffy's face told him that girl yelled and begged for someone or god to help her, and then out of thin air you show up. Well, he's right on both accounts, human and god together, laughed Zeus boisterously. You're right, Luffy says, with a smirk, some godly being did come save her. Just then the pirate shot at Luffy and he bounced it right back at him, with a bullet hitting him in his arm, making him drop the gun. Then the two pirates holding swords charge Luffy, surprised he's still alive, and Luffy grabs the swords with the blade and electrifies them. This blows back the weak pirates, leaving the swords in Luffy's hands. Apparently the weak pirate group leader is still awake. Luffy punches him in the face to knock him out. Just then the cute red-headed girl peeks around the corner to see what happened, only to see Luffy standing there. The three pirates that were chasing her knocked out or nowhere where she could see. Luffy turns to start walking to the dock hoping Zoro will find him. He sees the cute redhead as she runs to him and asks him what happened. Luffy just said he knocked them out. Well, my name's Nami, maybe I could repay you for helping me. Luffy just smiles and says, good food would be awesome. So the girl named Nami took Luffy to a nearby house and searched for food. She gave him some of the food. While gorging on bread and some fruit, he looks at this new girl called Nami. She has fair skin, shoulder-length orange to red hair, wearing a blue and white vertical short-sleeved t-shirt, a brownish-yellow skirt and a pair of hiking boots. Nami looks at him. So what brings you here? She asks quizzically. Luffy looks up and smiles and explains, I'm looking for a navigator. Nami pridefully states, well, look no further, I'm the best in the business. Great! Exclaims Luffy. Would you like to join my pirate crew? He asks. Nami suddenly got a look of anger on her face. No, I won't join you. Nami replies angrily. Why not? Luffy says, exuberated. Because I don't join pirates, I steal from them, replied Nami smugly. Luffy was a little shocked by that statement. She probably stole from those pirates that were chasing her, said Zeus. Did you steal from the pirates that were chasing you? Asked Luffy. Nami, a little surprised by the question, softly nodded yes. What did you take? He asked. Nami said, I took a map of the Grand Line from their pirate captain. Luffy smiled and asked if she still had it. She said yes, of course. You think I'm gonna let them have it back? But there's more I want to take from them. Would you help me and consider it a temporary partnership? If they can put up a good fight, I'll help you. First we have to make sure the rest of my crew gets here in case we need help. Okay, let's go to the port and hope they get here soon, suggested Nami. Back with Zoro and Koby. Koby is doing push-ups and sweating profusely while trying to guide Zoro, which was a challenge because Zoro would end up veer off course every few seconds. Zoro, stay on course will you, yelled Hades with sharp teeth in his mouth. Zoro yells back at him to shut up, looking like he is ready to pull his sword out. Out of Koby's range of sight from him working out, he sees three people bobbing up and down in the water. Zoro barely turns around and sees them. The lead yells and asks to board the boat. If you're gonna get in you better jump in cause I'm not stopping, warns Zoro. The three men saw what was going to happen, they quickly grabbed a side of the boat and eventually climbed in. The instant they got on and Koby saw them, he froze and stopped doing push-ups. The three men wore face makeup looking kind of like clowns. After catching their breath they pulled out their swords and aimed two of them at Zoro and one at Koby. Koby looks frightened because he knows whose crew they are from. Zoro looked a little confused. Who are these guys? Zoro began to wonder. While the pirate is focusing on Koby trying to gain control, Koby looks like he might pee himself. Koby all of a sudden heard something hit the deck and felt the boat stop moving. Koby looked behind the pirate and saw a slightly tired and pissed off Zoro. Koby smiled. The pirate asked Koby, what makes you so happy, boy? Zoro tapped him on the shoulder. As the pirate turned around, Zoro punched in the face, leaving him unconscious. Hades, happy and surprised, told Zoro, I am proud of how you handled that, even without powers or swords. Few minutes later Zoro and Koby are sitting, neither of them are rowing or doing push-ups, just watching the pirates row the boat towards their base, hoping they will find Luffy there. So, asks Zoro, how did you get stranded out on the sea like that? The lead pirate, who sat in the middle of them, said, we had our own boat and a nice-sized treasure chest heading back to base. On our way back we came upon this smaller boat with a cute reed passed out. As we approached the boat she stirred and told us if we gave her some water and we could have her treasure chest. We wanted to check out the treasure first, so as we jumped on her ship to look at the treasure, and while we did she sneaked onto our boat. As we opened the chest and saw nothing except a sign, got y'all. We look back at our boat as she is sailing off and tells us there's a storm coming, but there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Before we go after her, a storm came out of nowhere and capsized the boat. Back with Luffy. After waiting for 20 minutes, Nami is getting irritated thinking Buggy's men will be after them soon. But Luffy was calm and internally was talking to Zeus. "What's wrong, kid? Everything seems to be going right." "Yeah," says Luffy, "this new girl and this deal we have is not exactly what I was hoping for." "What exactly were you hoping for, boy?" "I didn't want a temporary member, I wanted a full member, but we will see if I can change that," Luffy replied determinedly. Nami looks out to sea again and starts seeing a boat heading towards them and gets Luffy's attention. "Luffy, is that the boat we are waiting for?" asks Nami. Luffy barely looks off into the horizon and sees a ship approaching with a young boy with a pink mop of hair waving. "Really?" says Zeus, "why does the boy have to act like that?" Luffy giggles, saying how he's young and in this life he will grow up quickly. As they dock the boat, the 3 Buggy pirates jumped out to save their lives. They kiss the ground, thanking them for being away from Zoro. "They are pussies, aren't they?" says Hades. "Yes they are," says Zoro with a smirk. As the Buggy pirates look back and see Zoro standing behind them, they run for their lives. Zoro looks at Luffy and smacks him in the head. "Why did you decide to attack that giant seagull?" says Zoro. "He what?" says Nami as she is semi-surprised by Luffy's actions. Koby looks up at Luffy and asks him what we are doing here. Luffy smiles and introduces the small crew to Nami, a pirate thief, and we are gonna help her steal a map, so in doing so, she will help us get to the Grand Line. "Steal from who?" asked Koby. Nami smiled and said Buggy the Clown. Koby freaked out and yelled, "BBB Buggy the Clown, he's a feared pirate in these seas, there's no way we can beat him." As he tries to run back to the boat, Zoro catches him by the back of his shirt and starts to drag him away as Luffy and Nami walk back into town. As they walk down the street, they start talking about how they are gonna battle Buggy. As Nami was coming up with an idea, they walked upon a pet store with a cute little white dog out front. Luffy stops in his tracks and walks right up to the dog and tries to pet it. As he leaned his head down and got inches from the dog's face and tried to rub under his chin, the dog bit him. Luffy flares around with a little white dog attached to his hand, trying to get him off. Zoro is laughing at the sight, Koby is worried the dog might hurt Luffy, and Nami is yelling at Luffy for trying to pet a strange dog. Just as Luffy gets the little dog off his hand, they hear an old man yelling at them. "What are you doing to poor Chaochu?" In came an older man with fluffy white hair, a yellow striped button-up shirt, brown jean shorts, and some scrap makeshift armor, and carrying a spear. He yelled and asked why they were tormenting this poor dog sitting here and guarding his treasure. "Treasure?" inquired Luffy. "What kind of treasure could a dog have?" asked Zeus. "Any treasure he has should protect it, and we should help him protect it by kicking Buggy's ass," says Luffy. The now mayor of this town, Boodle, told them the dog is protecting the dog food store. Boodle continues and tells the crew that Chow Chow owner has passed away a few months ago, and I'm sure he knows he's gone, but decides to watch over the store and protect it. Nami asks, "Why don't you take him away so he can be safe from the pirates?" Mayor Boodle tells the young lady, "We have tried numerous times, but every time we get him close to out of town, he barks, bites and wriggles free and runs back to the store." Zeus and Hades tell Luffy and Zoro respectfully that the dog has courage and pride that they respect, and Luffy and Zoro agree with their respected gods. Luffy and Zoro look at the little white dog in fondness. Luffy tells Zoro and Koby while Nami was talking to the mayor that we are gonna help this dog and kick Buggy's ass out of this town. Zoro nodded with a devious grin on his face, and Koby looked scared but strengthened his resolve and had a firm look on his face, preparing for the worst. Buggy's base. In the middle of the town stood the bar, which after the raid of the town Buggy took as his base of operations. On top of the bar it looked like a circus had come to town, and most of the crew members looked like clowns. Under a circus-like pop tent sat Buggy in shadow, showing only piercing angry eyes. "Moji!" yelled Buggy from his tent. All the crew members looked and were scared at the fact their captain was mad. "Go see what's taking those men from returning with the treasure and the map that little girl stole." Back at the pet store. Luffy and the gang are standing around planning on how they are gonna take out Buggy. The mayor is over getting food for Chaochu. Off in the distance they hear a thunderous stomping coming towards them, and the mayor freaks out, grabs Nami by the arm, and screams that Moji is coming. Luffy looks intrigued. Zeus and Hades are both interested, saying that he sounds strong with all that noise he's making. Around the corner comes a giant lion with fur and a lavender mane. The man sitting on his back is of average height with white fur hair from his shoulders up and looks like he has teddy bear ears on top of his head. Luffy has stars in his eyes, wanting to pet the lion. As the lion walks closer to the pair and spots the pet store and starts walking towards it. Moji tells Richie, "You want a treat, you can have one after we beat these 2 weaklings," which Richie shakes his head and agrees. Just as Richie turns back to Luffy and Zoro, the boys hear a low growl, and next they see Chaochu attack and bite Richie's leg. Richie just swings his leg and flings Chaochu into the front wall of the pet store. This angers Luffy and Zoro. This angers the boys and Moji hops off Richie so the lion can deal with the boys without interference. Luffy looked at Zoro telling him to deal with the weird teddy bear guy. Zoro nods as Luffy approaches the lion with a stern focused look on his face. Richie was right upon Luffy, and as he opened his mouth to bite down on Luffy's head, Luffy grabs Richie by the jaw, top and bottom, and quickly picks him up, spins him around, and slams him head first into the street with an electric shock as he hits the ground. As soon as Moji saw Richie knocked out, randomly runs at Zoro yelling, "I'm the first mate, and I'll kill you, punk." He rushes Zoro, who simply grabs him by the head and gives him a right cross to the jaw, and Moji crumbles into a pile on the ground. After the lion and teddy bear man were beaten, Luffy called out to the mayor and Nami to tell them that they were beaten. Zeus and Hades were impressed how quickly these two were taken down. Nami was shocked to see the giant lion and man crumpled on the ground unconscious. She runs over to Luffy and shakes him back and forth, asking him how this happened. Once Zoro got her to stop shaking him, he was able to tell her that they beat them. But how, she asks. Before Luffy could give her an answer, the mayor pushes past her with anger on his face, wanting to go after these pirates. Out of nowhere, as the mayor was stomping off to give Buggy a piece of his mind, he fell unconscious. Nami turns around in surprise as to why the mayor fell, and Luffy states, "I hit him in the head." "Why in the world did you hit him?" Nami yells at Luffy. He looks at with a serious face and says if he went off the fight Buggy, he would have been killed. Nami sees what Luffy meant, and kinda gets a slight feeling that Luffy isn't some bloodthirsty pirate like all other pirates she's met. Now as the four of them start walking to the town pub, Luffy tells Koby that when we get close, I want you to take Nami to find the treasure, take it and hide till the fighting is over. Koby and Nami nod in understanding. As they get close, Koby grabs Nami's hand and runs off to find the treasure. After they were out of the way, Luffy can hear a crowd of people on the roof. "Hey Big Nose, get down here," yells Luffy. All noise stops for a few seconds, and then they hear murmuring and the sound of people panicking and scared on the roof. Just then a man with a pointed pirate hat, brown pants, pointed elf-looking blue shoes, a horizontal white and red striped shirt, and big red captain's coat on and face makeup to look like a clown. "Who the hell called me Big Nose?" Luffy looks up and grins and says, "I did." Buggy looks down on this teen thinking he's asking to be killed. Buggy looks around and without even sending one of his men down, he's too pissed off. Send down the buggy ball. Some pirates were surprised and others were cheering in pure joy as three underlings drag over this big cannon and aim it at Luffy. Luffy just grins and Nami and Koby poke their heads out from where they were hiding to see a cannon aimed at Luffy, and they start panicking. Within seconds, a larger than normal red cannonball fires at Luffy. Luffy looks so calm, then the cannonball is halfway to Luffy and he just sucks in a huge amount of air and inflates his stomach. As the cannonball hits his stomach, Luffy bounces it back towards the bar. Buggy is shocked at what he sees right till the cannonball hits and destroys the bar. As the dust clears, you see four standing underlings till they fall unconscious. Standing there is a Buggy and a man with long black hair on one side and shaved on the other, and a blue and white checkered scarf covering his mouth and reaching the ground, black boots, white pants and a long up and dark blue jacket named Kobaji. Zeus and Hades are shocked that they gave up the lives of their men so two could live. Kobaji looks at Buggy and asks him, from the looks of things these two might be the simple reason Moji and Richie probably ran off. Buggy glances at Kobaji and says maybe, but Moji was always weaker. The only reason he was first mate is because he had a giant lion. Buggy looks over at the duo. So who are these two dumbasses who decided to attack us? Zoro looks at Luffy and tells him, you can take the Big Nose and I'll handle the freak. Gotcha, said Luffy while cracking his knuckles. Buggy starting laughing, thinking this boy can handle him. Looking down at Luffy, Buggy runs off at the mouth how he has been a pirate longer than Luffy has been alive. Then he noticed three swords sitting on Zoro's right hip. Staring him right in the eye, ask him if he was the pirate hunter. Zoro cocks a look at him and tells the Big Nose captain that he has stopped pirate hunting. Out of nowhere, Buggy runs at Zoro with knives between his fingers. Right as he gets to Zoro, he pulls out all three of his swords and cuts Buggy's arm and head off and cuts him in half right above the waist. Buggy falls in a heap as a lifeless body until Kobaji starts to snicker and laugh. Luffy looks confused as to why he's laughing after his boss just got killed. As they are distracted, a dark figure rises behind the duo with an evil smile. Luffy behind Zoro yells Zeus. Luffy whips around and grabs a wrist, about to stab Zoro in the back. Surprise to him and Zoro, it was Buggy alive and unharmed. How in the world are you alive? Gasps Zoro. Buggy chuckles and tells them, I ate the bara no me devil fruit. I'm a split man and I can't be cut by a sword no matter how hard you try. As Buggy puts himself back together with a wide grin on his face. Zoro says, Luffy deals with a weird swordsman I got from the clown. "Any problem with that?" asked Luffy. "Not one, Captain." Zoro vs Koby. Zoro ties his bandana around his head and puts his two swords in his mouth and in his mouth, ready to end this fool. As darkness lightly flickers off his swords, Koby is sitting there on his unicycle and opens his mouth and pulls out a sword from his throat. Zoro holds his throat thinking the sword would slice him. Koby finally speeds up his attack and attacks Zoro with an overhead swing, and Zoro stalls his attack when they clash. They back off each other to size each other up. "You're stronger than I thought you'd be, but nothing I can't handle," says Koby. Zoro just scoffs at his comment. Just as Zoro thought Koby was gonna attack, Koby backs up and turns around and runs up the side of the building. "What the hell are you doing up there?" yells Zoro with a tick mark on his forehead. "Are you scared to fight honestly?" yells the pissed off swordsman. "Not just getting a better vantage point to kill you." As Koby sits on the edge of the building still upright on his unicycle digging in his coat for a plan. Koby pulls out two hands full of spinning tops and magically gets them all to spin on his hands. Zoro looks up at him strangely like what he plans on doing with these stupid tops. Koby snickers and throws them at Zoro, and within a split second, Zoro lets some darkness out flowing out of his blades and starts cutting the tops in half. "What the hell are you yelling at?" a freaked out Koby, some type of demon. Zoro's darkness extends his blade's length by 6 inches and the width by an inch of pure darkness. All because he can't control it yet. Zoro looks up at him with his darkness flowing out of his blades, like this guy's goose is cooked. Koby starts to panic and starts throwing more and more tops at Zoro. As Zoro effortlessly cuts them in half as if they were nothing. As the tops stop flying towards him, Koby panics more and backs up on his unicycle, and then out of nowhere comes flying off the building with his sword pointing straight down, planning on impaling him. "Prepare to die, you demonic swordsman." Buggy tries to sneak his hand in the battle to hold Zoro still. But right before he could grab him, Luffy grabs his hand and squeezes and shocks Buggy's hand. Now Buggy is crying on the ground from Luffy's small attack. Zoro takes out his unicycle, says Hades. That's his weakness. Zoro steps forward and jumps and cuts the unicycle and knocks Koby off. The cycle goes tumbling off and Koby tumbles a little but still gets up and runs at Zoro. "This is what you get for wrecking my ride." Zoro turns off the darkness on his blades and prepares his attack. As Koby swings down for his strike, Zoro uses his onigiri and leaves a bad slice through the clown boy's chest. "I'm tried, Luffy. I leave the rest to you and sit down and rest." Match over, winner. Zoro. Now that the fight between Zoro and Koby is over, Luffy is smiling yet Buggy is flabbergasted. How did this boy and this stupid swordsman beat his whole crew almost effortlessly? Zeus is smiling and confident, telling Luffy to take this idiot clown down. As over with Zoro, Hades is congratulating Zoro for his win. Luffy had his signature straw hat covering his eyes. Buggy standing there laughing, thinking this brat can't possibly take him down and that he will wipe the floor with him. "There is something strange about that hat of yours, boy." Luffy raises his head in pride as he rests his hand on his hat. "My hero gave me this hat once I was a little boy." Quick flashback. Luffy is 7 years old. He is standing on the dock starting a giant pirate ship. Zeus looks back into Luffy's past and is surprised at how weak he looked back then. "What happened to you from then till now?" Luffy looks at him and tells him 10 years of training and practice. The pirate looked down on him and told he is not ready to sail on the open sea yet. The pirate was named Red-Haired Shanks. He was an average white man, baggy white button-up shirt, red pants with a red sash around his waist and brown sea boots. But what made him stick out from everyone else is the 3 scars sitting dialogically across his left eye and his old straw hat. Zeus looks at Luffy questionably. "Luffy is his inspiration for your straw hat." Luffy just smirks and says nothing. Shanks looks at Luffy and tells him, "When you get old enough and strong enough, climb to the top and meet me at the summit." As Shanks places his signature straw hat on young Luffy's head, Luffy starts to tear up from receiving such a precious gift. Luffy looks slightly up and tells Shanks he will make him proud. Zeus smirks, saying, "Now I understand where you got it from and why you protect it so." Back with the fight, Luffy v Buggy. Luffy looks at Buggy with his hat in his hand and tells him, "A great pirate gave it to me when I was younger named Shanks." Buggy eyes get really big and shock. "Really, Shanks, that bastard? He ruined my life and dream." Luffy looks at Buggy and kinda smiles. "He only would have done that if you were a bad guy or accident." Buggy gets enraged and fires his hand holding 3 knives off his body, aimed right at his hat and stabs right through it. Luffy is in a state of shock as he sees his precious treasure go flying out of his hand. Buggy calls back his hand with Luffy's hat still attached. Buggy looks at the hat questionable. "This hat has caused me so much pain and frustration." Buggy takes Luffy's hat off his hand and throws it on the ground and stomps on it. This enrages Luffy, and before Buggy could even look up and react, Luffy uses his lighting to increase his speed and punch Buggy straight in the face, sending him rolling backwards till he hits what's left of the bar. Buggy stands up after a few seconds, wondering where this power and speed came from this weak-looking little kid. Luffy looks at him with a smile and says, "I got more where that comes from." As Luffy stands there on the defensive in a boxer's stance waiting to see what this clown will do, Buggy raises his leg and pops 2-inch blades out of the bottom of his shoes, and Luffy looks intrigued about what he plans on doing with those little blades. Luffy asks him what he plans on doing with those little knives. Buggy, enraged, fires off his fist at Luffy, who with Zeus' guidance, easily dodges both fists with a smirk and runs towards Buggy. Buggy smirks because Luffy didn't know his fists had turned around and started chasing Luffy. Zeus tells Luffy the fists have turned and are now chasing him. Luffy starts running faster towards Buggy. Now the clown pirates what the young boy is thinking. As Luffy gets a step or two away Buggy, he stops. He turns around and catches Buggy's fist in his hand and throws some electricity into them, which makes Buggy drop his knives and attach back to Buggy's arms. "What the hell?" yells Buggy as he shakes his fists from the pain. As Buggy is yelling, Luffy turns around and throws electricity-powered right-no pistol into Buggy's chest. It throws Buggy's body into a wall as his head is still floating where his body was. As Buggy's head turns around to see what happened to his body, Luffy throws an electricity-powered left-no pistol right into the back of Buggy's head. His head goes flying and hits a wall and lands in his lap unconscious, and some slight burn marks on his chest and back of his head. Well, that deals with the fact that turns around and sees Zoro sleeping against a building, so he runs and goes to find Koby and Nami to help with the treasure. As Luffy goes to find Koby and Nami, he rounds the corner of the bar to see Koby dragging up a giant sack 3/4 his size. So Luffy walks over to help Koby drag the sack up through the doorway, then he notices that this little shed he's dragging the sack from goes down under the bar. Luffy turns and tells Koby to guard the money, he's gonna check this out. As he gets under the bar, he sees Nami opening this little chest with only a map inside. "Yes, I finally got it," exclaims Nami as she turns and sees Luffy behind her. "You need any help getting the last bit of stuff?" Luffy asks. "No," says Nami, "all that is left is the food and grog from the bar over in the corner." With her saying that, Luffy grabs a couple sacks and runs over to the food and grog and starts shoving food into the sacks till he can't fit no more and carries it up. Then he turns around and rolls up 3 large barrels of grog and asks Koby to help him take this to the ship. As they return to sea, Nami is pissed off that they left her and the money pretty much unguarded and that her and the money are more important. As Koby drags the money over to the front of the bar, Luffy goes over and wakes Zoro up. Zoro wakes up sleepily asking if it's time to leave yet. "Almost, we just gotta get this dumb clown out of town." Luffy and gang walk over to the unconscious Buggy to wake him up. As Buggy wakes up and looks up, he sees Zoro, Luffy, Koby and Nami standing over him. Luffy's fists are cracking with electricity, and Zoro has 2 of his swords out with darkness flowing off them, both looking menacing. It scares Buggy as Luffy tells him to gather what's left of his crew and get out of town and never show his face here ever again. Buggy runs and wakes and gathers what's left of his crew and runs for the ship, yelling, "This isn't the last you will see of us." Koby leaves a note for the knocked out mayor as they walk to the shore. Just as they are halfway through the town, an angry-looking mob shows up thinking they are part of Buggy's crew and chases them out of town. As Luffy and crew are running to the docks, Chow Chow jumps behind the small crew and blocks the mob's path and lets Luffy and friends get away. As someone sees the mayor, wakes him up and tells them that the pirate with the straw hat they chased off and Buffy is nowhere to be seen. The mayor looks down and reads the note and smiles. As they tie the 2 small boats together and start sailing off, Nami notices that the bag of money is smaller than it was before. Koby nervously tells Nami he left a small bag of treasure behind, so the townspeople have a start at rebuilding. As Nami start hitting Koby in the head and yelling about how he gave away her money. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the MELONYANDJOSHUA0921 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.